What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? It is your boy right here, man. MMA Reloaded, and we are live direct, man. I have to say, it feels great to be back in front of the camera and talking to you fans, wherever you're watching me. Thank you for watching me, folks. We are live and direct for Real Talk, episode 59. Yeah, folks, one more episode to the 60th, and I will tell you, folks, who's going to be joining me on the 60th episode. It is going to be held tomorrow night. And I have to say, it's a guy who's been on my show so many times. But, you know, I think you guys are going to like this one because it's going to be a different edition, different take. It is going to be Alan Superglue Martinez, who will be joining me, folks, on the 60th episode of MMA Reloaded Raw Talk. But, folks, before we get to that 59, man, I'm glad to be here talking to you guys and holding this show after 1 month out. I want to say thank you so much to my 58th show. The guest on my 58th show is Karate Combat competitor and what a true martial artist, just a true great guy all around, and that's Ross Levine. So I'm very, very thankful to him to keep you guys entertained while we wait for the next show. So, folks, episode 59, and tonight I am pleasured to be joined by Erik, the new breed Koch. Erik Koch, folks, that name is going to sound familiar to a lot of people. It's, to anyone who was an original WEC fan or a UFC fan back in the merger days when WEC fighters came to compete in the UFC in 2010-11. So Erik Koch was part of that breed, ladies and gentlemen, of newborn featherweights and bantamweights. So he will go down as one of the toughest guys, I think, to come into this sport. He'll go down as one of the toughest guys in this sport, one of the most talented, a guy whose career, I think, has been shortened by a lot of injuries. So I will talk to him about that. And folks, we'll get into the nitty-gritty with this one. It'll be a pleasure to talk to a veteran like Erik Koch. I am let's see where the night takes us. But you know how we do business, man. When we talk real, we never lie, cheat, and steal. And we are live, man. Live. I don't do none of that unfiltered. I don't do none of that filtered, scripted bollocks. All right. So, folks, before we get to Erik Koch, of course, it's been a month since I've been back. We've seen a lot of things as of late, both with Nick Diaz returning against Robbie Lawler, and we've seen UFC. We've seen where Brian Ortega and Alexander Volkanovski went to war on that night as well, and Valentina Shevchenko continued her greatness against Lauren Murphy on that night. Then after that, folks, there was a lot of criticism with the fight nights. So Johnny Walker's fight night against Thiago Santos, which Thiago Santos did end up coming out victorious with, was looked upon very unfavorably, if you will. And of course, Maheta Santos was looking for that win. He was looking to get back in the win column after 3 hard losses. One of them being John Jones, the others being against Jan Blachowicz was one of them, and Alexander Rakic. There was one, sorry, not Jan. Glover Teixeira and Rakic were Santos's 2 other losses. So he needed to come back, and you don't have to, swing for the fences to come back in a big way. Being technical and being smart is just as good as swinging for the fences, in my opinion. It's a very unpopular opinion, knowing Thiago Santos' style, knowing Johnny Walker's style. But that's the way I think. I think that, if you're in that position and you're in need of a must win, and you're in a must win fight. You're back against the wall. You know, you got to fight smart, and he did. You know, and not to say Johnny Walker didn't fight smart, because Johnny Walker did fight smart, but in that fight, both guys fought smart, but they're known for wild exchanges, which, you know, really open eyes, because you're showing new levels and new aspects to your game in mixed martial arts. You're showing that you can be patient aside from brawling. You have multiple other skills and techniques that you can use aside from, you know, wild exchanges. So it was refreshing to see, even though they only threw like 40 strikes each. So thought as you know, as that went on, and we saw the fight night after that, which was last night, Mackenzie Dern taking on Marina Rodriguez in the main event. I have to say, I thought Randy Brown versus Jared Gooden stole the show, as I knew it would. Alexander Romanov, that guy, the hype and the build around Alexander Romanov now after that performance last night is going. His stock is just going up. Yeah, it's going nowhere but up. I can see him breaking into that top 5 very, very, very soon. For you know, you had a lot of new guys on the show like Steve Garcia, who beat Charlie Ontiveros. Of course, Charlie Ontiveros took a short notice, 48-hour short notice fight against Kevin Holland. Just I think over a year back. So he looked like a firecracker in that fight. But you know, really, you don't really think about those things. You know, like if you're coming on short notice, it gives you even more of a pressure on your shoulders to look great when you've actually had a full camp. Otherwise, then why did the UFC call you in, or why did you accept this and that fight? You know, so I mean, there were some great performances on the show. UFC Vegas 39, UFC Vegas 40 will be Norma Dumont against Holly Holm. Now, I don't think it is Holly Holm anymore. It's Aspen Ladd. So Aspen Ladd has taken Holly Holm's place in this one, folks. And Aspen Ladd was meant to fight 2-3 weeks ago, and she ended up missing weight by 4.5 pounds. Now, let's take that a bit step forward. She's missed a couple of fights now because of weight, and always had a weight issue. So what's your most logical solution is to move up weight so you have a safer weight cut, or you cut a deal with your opponent and the UFC and the commission to have a catch weight bout. Now that's the realist. Now, folks, before I invite and I do the particulars with I want to say that you know, Tyson Fury last night looked great. I have to say, early rounds from, you know, round 1 to 4, there were brutal exchanges. Both guys got dropped. Both guys landed great shots. And I have to say that Tyson Fury, in the end, he looked fantastic. And yeah, man, Tyson Fury looked great. It was one of those things with Tyson Fury that for him to really you know, for him to come out there and do what he did to a Wilder that a lot of people thought was, you know, was very refocused and gonna bring that same old energy with a lot more technique. Tyson Fury really shot Deontay Wilder down once again. He got dropped, yes. Wilder dropped him with a few very good right hands. You know, when they're clinching inside and Wilder landed one, I saw right at the chin, putting Fury down. And the shot that put down Wilder round 11, that just shows what a beast Tyson Fury is, because his conditioning is absolutely amazing. He had the reflexes, he had instinct, he had the wherewithal to move out of the big right hand of Deontay Wilder up close and really come up. He came over the top with a shot, which was beautiful. And man, I have to say, congratulations, Tyson Fury. I can see the winner of Joshua versus Usyk being the next for Tyson Fury. But there was a news on Matchroom Boxing that the winner of this Fury versus Wilder trilogy would have to face Dillian White next. So I'm excited to see what happens next, and definitely Tyson Fury is going down as one of the greatest heavyweights of all time, with some of the greatest names out there. So, folks, I'm gonna do the particulars right now. So stay tuned. Don't go anywhere, yeah? I know y'all go somewhere. Don't go anywhere, all right? Chill out. What's going on, folks? So particulars are done. Erik Koch, folks, is going to join me on the show. A name that sounds familiar, and is one of those names, folks, here that really ties in with what I'm trying to do here with MMA Reloaded Raw Talk, and that's to really bring back forgotten veterans into the mainstream in line. What's it? Folks. So yeah, man, that was really my idea with MMA Reloaded, is to do that, and we've had Jamie Varner, we've had Anthony Njokuani. We've had Anthony Njokuani, we've had Jamie Varner, we've had a lot of veterans, folks, a lot of rising stars, a lot of prodigies, prospects. And I am glad and pleasured that Erik Koch is here, and Erik Koch is going to join me, folks. These, folks, this is what I always say, is that, you see the era now, and you see how divisions are stacked, you see how divisions are stacked, and you see how it's changing, but you never forget who paved the way for you. Do you know what I mean? And it's one of those. And you never forget who paved the way for fighters that we know and love today. I think Erik Koch is one of those guys. And I can't wait to have Erik Koch on the show. I hope you'll join me. Yeah. Okay, cool. So Erik Koch, folks, is on his way in, and I am glad and pleasured that he will be my first guest back in just over a month. So, folks, also Bellator were live and direct for Bellator 269, and MVP met Douglas Lima for the second time, right? So as you know, in the first fight, Douglas Lima knocked out MVP, just outsmarting, just using his veteran instincts and just really outsmarting MVP. But when in this second fight, Douglas Lima was the more he was the smarter fighter. He was the more well-rounded fighter, and he should have won this fight, no doubt about it. The decision should have had Douglas Lima's arm raised, but it didn't. Yeah. The whole thing is that it was just one of those things that really it was just one of those things, that because it was in London, MVP took the decision, which is what I think. I don't think MVP really earned the decision by the way the fight went. It really just showed that if you have the home time advantage, it helps. For me, there was Bellator is heating up right now. So is one championship, folks. One championship in 5 nights will be doing they'll be doing a Grand Prix, featherweight kickboxing Grand Prix. It looks to be a great show. I'm glad I'm going to be tuning in for that one, folks. And they're kicking it off with Giorgio Petrosian versus Superbon Benchamek, and that fight, folks, itself is a one Muay Thai, is a one kickboxing championship fight. That is to determine the inaugural champ. And Erik Koch, folks, is live direct. So let's do this, man. Give me 1 second, folks.
Yo.
Oh, hey. New breed. How's it going, man?
Oh, it's going. Just another day.
Man. Hey, man, I'm glad, man. Hey. So first of all, man, it's a pleasure to have you on the show. Welcome to Real Talk, man. You know what, why I do this show is because I want to bring back veterans who I think have, people have forgot. Even though it's only been 2 years since your last fight.
Yeah.
It's one of those things that, you've done so much for this sport and you've been everywhere and you've fought everyone. So I want to reintroduce Erik New Breed Koch to the fans. So man, so Erik, bro, I know it's been 14 years since you first started in this business. Literally 14, 15 years, 22 fights as a professional. Take me back to the beginning, man. How did it start for the New Breed in combat sports, man?
Oh man, well, it actually started. I would have to say it started when I was 4 years old. I grew up watching Power Rangers, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. So I always wanted to be a ninja. So I saw an ad in a newspaper. I know it's different now because everything's done online, but I saw an ad in a newspaper for a Taekwondo school. And, I begged my parents to do it, and they got me into Taekwondo. And within a couple months, man, I was hooked. That martial arts was my life, even at a young age. And it just kind of went from there. And I was in Taekwondo till I was about 12, and I was very competitive. As a kid, I was a little bit of a hothead. So thank God Taekwondo really leveled me out.
Build me 1 second.
Yeah.
What the hell?
Is it glitching?
Sorry about that, Erik. Sorry, bro. Had a double shit going on there, man.
Okay.
No, carry on, please.
But,
I'm so sorry.
No, you're good. But I did that till 12, and the only reason I stopped going Taekwondo was just because my brother, who had just bought a house, started renting like UFC VHS at Blockbuster, and that already seems like,
oh man.
And I mean, these were the first UFCs, and this is when it was still relatively underground. No one really knew about it. Yeah. And my brother had a passion for it. He started, getting Gracie books, instructionals like that. And he ended up getting like 8 zebra mats, put them down in his basement.
Wow.
And actually crazy how this team started, because he was a manager for a telephone company. And he was getting all his employees, like some of his male employees, because they were all younger, early 20s, mid 20s, to over and train, in his basement. Yeah, And so it was one of those things where Keone kept hounding me to come try it out. Well, I went and tried it out, and I was like, man, this is really cool. This is more than just, standing and kicking. There's a lot more to this. So I'd say I really put myself into that for about a month. And then after a month, like I was hooked. I was obsessed with martial arts. As a lot of people probably already know, like I was a hothead in high school. I dropped out of high school. I wanted to pursue like only this. And I would say that was the wrap. So, I mean, I've been doing martial arts since I was 4 years old. I've never really taken a break.
I mean, it's refreshing. It's so good to know that you started this young, and still started that young and still going today. And for it to actually, take place in your brother's basement.
Yeah.
That is crazy shit, man.
Well, what I'm saying from the bottom, now we're here. Like it's crazy to see where our gym's at now. We have a nice state-of-the-art facility, and it's huge, it's booming. But to think that all came from a fight club, essentially.
And one of the rules, never talk about fight club, man.
Yeah. Well, here I am.
So I guess the main lesson from that is to see from where you started to where you are now, and never really forget your roots, right?
Yeah, and it's kind of what's cool about the journey is I've met a lot of people in the fight business, and I've trained with top dogs. But for me to come back and do this with my brother it's awesome, and we know who we are. I've competed at the highest in the world, and even a lot of people don't know my brother. His last fight was against Brian Ortega, and that was a split. And a lot of people thought he won the fight. I know I'm being, but so with just some Iowa boys that like to get down,
And speaking of Brian Ortega, I just want to get your thoughts on the featherweight championship fight. I don't know if you caught the fight.
Oh yeah.
What are your thoughts, man? And how would you break it down if you were to break it down?
I'm blessed to watch that fight. That fight was right now for me. That's fight of the year.
Yep. Yes, sir.
That fight was nuts, man. And I had Volk, winning the fight. I didn't think it would be easy, but I had him winning. And Ortega, what was it? Third round? Was it third round? Third round, man. That guillotine, anybody but Volkanovski is out. Like that shit was nuts. I was losing my mind. And then even the triangle, after he got battered up, it was, yeah, man, it was crazy. And the crazy thing is, I was watching it with my my fellow training partner, Biggie, and we were saying at the end of the third, if I'm in the corner, I might be here, or stop in the fight, because Ortega didn't know where he was at. He was just going to take a bunch of unnecessary damage. But then fifth round, Ortega started putting it on him, so it's crazy, man. The fight game's nuts.
But like there's a lot of perception on what heart is to what winning a fight is, and yeah, it does take heart to win a fight, because if you're against a guy like Volkanovski, there's a lot of punishment and expect to take a lot of punishment, So if you were in Brian Ortega's corner, Erik, heading into those later rounds, and of course it's by then it was too late to win the fight for him, unless he stopped it. But if you were in the corner, what would you have said? Because he was in Volkanovski's range the whole time. He never really backed up and used his own reach.
Yeah. Well, yeah. If I'm in this corner, like I said, I'll stand by it, even though it continued and the fight was awesome. If I was in this corner, I'm throwing in the towel after that third round. After he's laying there thinking the fight's done, but this is me saying, I don't know. I don't teach. I don't train with Brian Ortega. So probably know He's that crazy fucker, and he wants to, so it's like you got to look out for their safety. But every fighter differs. They're all different. If they're wired a little bit different, like is Nate Diaz's corner ever going to stop a fight? Hell no. So it all depends. But yeah, I think if I was giving him advice in the corner, it would have to be, go for it. Honestly, especially after the third, and I know it expends a bunch of energy, but he actually took Volkanovski down in one of those rounds. I feel like maybe he should try tying him up and try to get it to the ground and start, trying to work submissions and stuff like that. But even at the end of the fifth, man, they were both so tired, but he was landing more. He was landing more in the fifth. He's kind of picking up. So it's crazy with a fight like that to give advice, man, because it's so back and forth.
And let's go back. I mean, you're right. It's fight of the year at the moment. As it stands, that is fight of the year. And when you see a fight like that, you can't. I mean, I kind of put you on the spot there, Erik. With the corner advice, but because of how it was and how it went, and the intensity and the violence and the exchanges, it is hard to really give advice on those fights. But I appreciate that, man. With yourself, and I want to talk about, because you really literally climbed the ladder from the regionals all the way up. So let's talk about that, man. Let's talk about the bottom of the ladder and the rung. Let's talk about Midwest Championships. And the start of your career. How did you feel mentally and in your mind going into competing for the first time as a professional, and in that regional scene? What was the first expression and impression that you had going into that scene, man?
Oh man, it was, it's crazy. In the fight game, you learn a lot along the way. And to me, I think back to when I was younger, and like I said, I was a little bit of a hothead. I had an anger problem. It just translated really well. Super easy. It was like fighting, I'll take a fight week notice. I don't care. I just want to beat. So like when I was younger on the regional circuit, it was just whoever, whenever, and that was kind of the mentality. And when you get older, and I've had many talks with my coach, Duke Rufus, about this. Yeah. When you get older, you calm down. You're not that angry person anymore. A good example is Nick Diaz. Yeah. I don't want to be gangster. It's like, I'm old. I'm old, dude. I want to chill out. I don't want to be angry all the time. It's not good for your health. It just isn't. And that's kind of where I got caught. It was super easy early in my career, just going and going and going. And, I have that mean streak, but at the same time, my father was my best friend, and he was probably the nicest guy ever. And I realized the older I got, the more I was like him. It wasn't that I didn't like to compete. It's not that I didn't like to fight. I just had to I had to change things up mentally. What's my purpose? My purpose isn't to hurt this guy. My purpose, well, it is to hurt the guy on that fight day, but my purpose is to beat this guy and continue to climb. And so on the regional circuit, it was super easy, and it showed. I was undefeated. I was finishing all my fights, so going from that to the WEC, I was still young. I still kind of had that. I would say when I hit about 20, 25 is when I started my mentality kind of changed. Not in a bad, it was just a way I had to kind of adjust. I didn't feel like I had that killer instinct, that I wanted.
Yeah. So that at the beginning you would say that it was more of a developmental time for you in terms of maturing up and, get your fight IQ right and get the, learn the ropes. But, did that, you know, like you said, heading into the WEC, you know, was that sort of like the foundation for you to keep learning and keep growing, even in somewhere like the WEC?
Oh, for sure. Well, and it was, you know, I always trained very, very serious, even on the regional circuit. But when I got the call up to the WEC, it was like, whoa, you know, because a lot of people don't understand WEC for me at the time was UFC.
Yes, sir.
WEC was bought by Zeus. They were under the same banner, you know, literally them just getting rid of the WEC and bringing it to the UFC. It didn't change anything. Like it gave us a bigger market, right? Like more people to see, but really it's the same thing. So when I got the call for the WEC, it was like, oh shit, this is what I've been doing this for, you know? So my training, you know, if you watch any of my older fights, I wasn't a big weightlifter. I was a scrawny, just a natural fighter. And as soon as I got called for the WEC, I was like, oh man, I gotta start, you know, putting on some weight and strength conditioning. Now maybe I have a little bit too much of a problem with that, but but yeah, it was one of those things where it was I had to take that next step, and WEC days to me will always be probably my biggest highlight. You know, it's kind of like that cult. It's got like a cult following for the people that in that small time frame that were big on MMA, because you know, WC was around for a long time, but when it was on Versus, that was a short period. That was relatively a short period, you know, it was a couple years. So that I got to get a WEC tattoo somewhere. I'm fixed.
Where do you have room for that, bro?
I do. I'm taking up everything. I got little Easter eggs. I'm just gonna have to find a little spot and get a WEC in there. Yeah. So, but yeah, that was kind of, you know, the WEC were those fun days. And then going into the UFC, you know, I'm not gonna lie, it added a little bit like under the UFC banner. Okay, UFC champ. This is what I dreamt for my entire life, you know. So having that opportunity, cool as well.
I mean, you know, you answered my next two questions, man. I wanted to, of course, you know, the WEC, Erik. I watched all of that shit. Yeah, I watched everything. Yeah, and you're right. You know, the WEC was just the UFC's way of showcasing the featherweights and bantamweights. And you're like, yeah, man, because they weren't doing the featherweights and bantamweights back then. And, you know, and of course, they were thinking of at one point of getting rid of the lightweight division. So you had the WEC. You know, man, do you have and you had 4 fights in WEC, 1 loss only to Chad Mendes. You know, no shame in that.
Yeah.
Did you have a favorite fight from that era? And did you have an opponent that you would have loved to face but never really got to?
Well, you know, there was Dustin Poirier, but I ended up fighting him in the UFC, right? Because me and Dustin, and I love what Dustin's done. I love him as a champ, you know. But in WEC, me and Dustin were always compared, you know, with same body type. We kind of look similar. We got tattoos, you know, so we always knew at the point we were going to fight each other. That never really happened in WEC, but the one fight that I think I was the most excited for was Josh Grisby.
Yes, sir.
You remember Josh Grisby?
Yeah, I do.
Because at the time he was the guy, you know, he was the contender. He was the 45, like they were building him. And
I mean, it was only because he had submitted Jens Pulver in the fight, which I think really broke him out back then.
Yeah. And I think he fought LC Davis too, and LC Davis like a 5-fight win streak, and he ended up winning that. But we were both the young up and comers, right? So I remember I got that fight, and I was like, "This is a big fight for me. I win this fight, I take all that shine," you know. and then the fight never happened. So that was one that I really wanted. What was another one? Oh, there was at one time too, Mike Brown actually needed.
Oh,
yeah. So that almost came to tuition there. Those two, those two were the ones when I was in it, when I was in the thick of it, those were the ones I wanted the most.
And you were talking about when the WEC merged with the UFC, and I've spoken with former WEC guys like Jamie Varner and Anthony Njokuani to get their view on how they. Yeah, man.
Both. I love Njokuani.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Hell yeah, man.
Yeah.
And but my question was, I spoke to them about how they thought and what their thoughts were about the WEC merging with the UFC. And I want to get your thoughts, Erik, because I know you went into it briefly just a moment ago. But it was one of those things where you had your lightweight division at WEC mixing with theirs in the UFC. Then you had you and Mike Brown and Uriah Faber, guys like that really creating the foundation for what would be the UFC featherweight division. Did you? What were your first impressions when you actually went into the UFC? Was it different? Did you feel more pressure, like you said, under the UFC banner? And
not really. Personally, I didn't feel more pressure because, like I said, they were owned. Whenever we had summit meetings or anything like that, we're all a part of the UFC, guys. So the only difference was the name and the color of the cage, and maybe bigger arenas. So one thing that I think made WEC cool was they marked it well. They did a good job doing that. And the fights, for the most part, took place in like Palms in Las Vegas. Yeah. It's a smaller. So this is before obviously pre-COVID. The venues were smaller, so you could hear, when you're fighting, you could hear everything that was landing and cool little things like that. And I was actually more of a fan of Pride than I was UFC as a kid. I love the quiet and the every step on the canvas you can hear. Every punch you can hear. Like, I like that, and I come from traditional martial arts, so like I like to think more respectful. You kind of got that vibe. It kind of gave me Jean-Claude Van Damme kickboxer vibe when he's fighting tongue. So it to me, WWE the same, but it was more of a feel, right? When I went to the UFC, same thing. It was the same thing. It was, like you said, it was a little different for the lightweights because it was kind of at that time. I remember when the merger happened. Okay, WEC versus UFC. Even my teammate Anthony Pettis, they're like, okay, WEC champ versus UFC champ. But for us, 45ers and 35ers, it was all the same. It was the same roster. It was everything. It was just a different branding, and that was about it. So I didn't take any other pressure. If anything, it was cool, right? Because having the UFC under my name, just as a technicality, right? Like, I'm a UFC, right? I say I'm a WEC fighter at the time. People are like, "What the fuck's that?" Like this. Yeah, no, I'm a UFC fighter. So that was kind of cool because I was 21. I was a young kid. So like any little perk I can get, I'm jazzed about. But for me, it was the same.
There was a lot of fighters during that merger that really didn't get perceived the same way as they were in the WC that they did in UFC. I feel like you were one of them, being one of the rising stars in the WEC. I feel like you could have got a lot further in the UFC than you did, and the same way with Anthony Pettis, he ended the WEC as champion. But but it ended up being Ben Henderson who competed with Frankie Edgar to be the lightweight. So it's things like that that really, really confused the hell out of me, because I was like, bro, if he's a champ coming out of the WEC, then why the fuck isn't he getting bigger opportunities in the UFC? I think, Erik, with you, I wanted to talk about, how some of your fights that could have happened got pulled because of injuries and things like that. Did you, did you feel, how were you feeling during that time, mentally and physically, because, you were pulling, because you got injured quite a few times and
it's something, it's crazy because there's two ways you can look at it. One way you can harp on it, you can feel sorry for yourself. And I definitely did that, right? When this happened, when I was slated to fight Jose for the title, I trained for that for like 9 months, like best shape of my life, best mentally, like I'm a champion. I said the first person to dethrone Jose Aldo is going to be a long rangey southpaw. Who was the one that dethroned him?
Conor McGregor.
Long rangey southpaw, right?
Yes, sir.
So that hurt me a lot, and I sulked and I felt sorry for myself. My knee was torn. I was going out drinking every single night by myself. So like I went down that dark road, and a lot of people, they say in this game, like, you don't ever want to look back and say, what if? Yeah. Well, life, and even in the fight game, it's a learning. When I was hurt all the time, because there was a period there where I just couldn't catch a break. I felt like Dominic Cruz. I was just tearing ligaments, getting fucked up. And a lot of that, and if this can be any advice to the younger fighters, cutting weight is so fucking overrated. So overrated. I'm walking around at 200 pounds right now. Now I don't look overly big, right?
You do from here. You do.
Okay, but it feels good, right? It feels in the gym. I'm healthy. I'm not tearing anything. I'm not getting injured. So what happened was, when I started going to 45, and what a lot of people don't know, and to touch on the point of you talking about like the smaller divisions back then not being around very much. Well, on the regional circuit, I really wasn't fighting at 45 because there wasn't 45 at the time. It was 55, the lower. So I was fighting at 55. I was fighting soaking wet 152 at 155. And I had a tournament. I fought 2 fights in one night before I went to the W. That was the Midwest Championships. Yep. And that was my first cut to 45. And that was rough. Well, then the W, and I started strength and conditioning program. Well, I built muscle. For example, we'll talk about it. Chad Mendez fight.
Yes, sir.
But I was cutting down to 45, like incrementally for 3 months. And the day of the fight, I had to cut 9 pounds of water. I almost didn't make it. So I was raised here in Iowa. I was raised under the assumption, cut weight, be the bigger, stronger guy. Right. Well, I've ran into so many problems, and I don't want to make excuses for all my losses, but a lot of my losses, is that 100% Erik Koch? Not even fucking close. I was cutting major amounts of weight. The Lamas fight, when I got busted up, right? I thought that was food poisoning. Nowadays, when you get sick, you can pull from a fight the day of. Yeah. Like at that time, if I would have pulled out, they would have had a fit. They would have fucking lost it, right?
Why? But why? Huh? But why? Because, like you said, we see guys do it now.
Because back fights weren't as often. The roster wasn't as big. Yeah. So if they hype up a fight for 2.5 months, 3 months, and it's a main card title eliminator,
fuck that. No.
It's not that like I'm going to be punished, but in a sense, they might put me on the back burner, and then I might have to do. Then
you would feel like shit afterwards.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny. I don't. This is a little little too much information in the story, but I look at this story as funny now because I look back at it and just experiencing it was terrible at the time, but it was so funny. So for that fight, for my Lamas fight, that was after I got hurt from my Aldo fight, right? Frankie took the fight, then they both got hurt, and they're like, okay, well, they're going to give the title fight to Frankie, but we're going to have you fight Ricardo Lamas, and winner of that gets the title shot. And I'm like, what? I'm like, whatever, we'll do it. So this is after my knee injury. I've been drinking, depressed, been eating like shit. I'm not even joking. At the time I got up to 205. So then they called me and they said, hey, I think it was January, Ricardo, you and Ricardo Lamas, Chicago for the title shot. I had 2.5 months to cut down to 45. So I had to cut from 205 to 145. I ended up doing it. I ended up making the weight, but I got sick. And whatever I ate, I'm pretty sure it was chicken. It wasn't my nutritionist's fault, but the fridge wasn't working. And the chicken that I got the night of the weigh-ins, I ate it in the morning, not realizing the fridge was off the whole time. So I was literally shitting my brains out the entire day before the fight. I was burping. The funny story. This is a funny one. Okay. So we're in the back warming up. This is on the same card Anthony fought Cowboy for the first time.
Yeah.
All right. We're both warming up and I can't stop burping. And when I burp, it smells like a fart. Like it is.
Shit.
So like I'm burping and Anthony goes, yo, Koch, are you busting ass? I'm like, dude, that was a burp. I walked to that fight. I was probably 155. I gained maybe 10 pounds. I didn't look good at all.
On the day of.
Which normally fighting at 45, I'm about 170, So yeah. So I was hurting on that one. And even then after that, man, a lot of my fights just don't, it's not percent me. I was too much battling the scale rather than worried about getting in a fist fight the next day, So I got a lot of flack when I said I was going to move up 70. Oh, Koch's not big enough for 70. I don't give a fuck how big you are. If I feel good, if I've got my speed and, I know what I'm doing. I've been doing this damn near over half my life now. That's the way. And then you see a lot of fighters having success doing this. They go up having more success. So yeah, if I take anything from that, I take a lot of responsibility of not add up earlier, because my dad used to tell me, God bless his soul. He used to tell me, you need to be fighting up. You need to be fighting up in weight. And I was always like, Dad, you don't know MMA like I know it. I got to cut weight because everybody cuts weight, and that now here we are. Now I'm fighting at welterweight, So, yeah, it's just trials and tribulations, man. Trials and tribulations. And,
I'm very I can tell, man. Right now, you look like fucking Captain America, bro, with fucking, and I'm scared to ask how much you weigh right now.
I'm about 200.
So if you were to fight, say, in a couple months, you would have had to cut 30 pounds.
But it's one of those things too. A lot of people don't understand, especially when it comes to water. The bigger you are, more water there is to lose, right? When I'm cutting to 45 and I've got 9 pounds to cut, like I can cut maybe 3 easy. Those other 6 are dangerous, At 70, actually dieting down and actually like hitting camp hard, I'm eating pretty much whatever the fuck I want right now. I guess we can call it bulking season, but when I clean my diet, I'll probably be walking around about 185.
Okay, cool.
So it's not that the biggest thing I said, I'm like, okay, I'm going up. That doesn't mean that I can become a bodybuilder and get too big, because then I'll run into the same problem. Yeah. But it's one of those things that, especially at those lightweight classes, I hold all my weight in my legs, and when I cut all that weight, and then put on all that weight the next day for a fight, my legs aren't there. Like I'm heavy, you know?
Yeah.
So,
Off balance. Yeah.
so
So, I wanted to also, I want to touch because, as we stand now in 2021, one of the most long-standing problems that I've always found with weight cutting, which pisses me off, is that you see fighters passing away from weight cuts. You've seen that. You've seen fighters pass out on the scale. You've seen fighters pass out. Even, I like one of the most embarrassing ones was Chris Cyborg. She passed out during weight cut, and they actually showed that on UFC Embedded. Then you had on the Ultimate Fighter, guys were passing out left, right, and center. What is, in your opinion, if you were going to list, say 5 things that lead to things like that, what would you say those would be?
Is that what you're saying? Well, I think, it's gotten a lot more scientific, the weight. It's not like the old wrestling where you just don't eat, but a lot of these guys and girls, they're putting too much into the water load. So what the water load is, you usually see fighters walking around the week with a gallon of water, and you're thinking, well, you're cutting weight. Why are you drinking water? Well, a water load is for 2 weeks, you're drinking 2 gallons of water every day. It's tricking your body, telling your body, hey, we're full of water. We're good.
Yeah.
And then those last 3 days, you cut your water down and you cut all the sodium out of your diet. It's a way for you to float water without killing yourself in the sauna. Now, what's happening is, and it works, but it never works the way as much as people expect it to, I feel like. Even when I've had it, I've done water cuts, or the water load, every cut I've had, I always expect to lose at least 3 more pounds. And then I wake up on weigh-in day like, oh, fuck. Like, now I'm already dry, and now I got to go in the sauna. Now I got to do a bath. So I think it's one of those things that it's a hard thing for them to monitor. And even doing same day weigh-in, I've talked about this, that might help, but then you might get people that are just not smart and try cutting a lot of weight same day. And that's how deaths happen. When you look, especially in boxing and stuff like that, yeah, there's a lot of trauma, but there's a lot of weight cutting. Well, when you take that water, when you take that water cushion out of your brain, and your brain batting against your skull, that's what's leading to hemorrhaging. That's what's leading to stuff like that. So, I don't really know of what would be a good way to do that, but I do know that's probably one of the biggest problems in the weight cutting part is the water load. I don't know if people know how to do it correctly. Sometimes it just messes up, it doesn't do quite as much as you expect. So, for me, they've got doctors and they monitor, and I know UFC now, they make sure you're within that weight, and they watch you, they watch you the whole time. But I'm not even joking. When I fought Brookins in New Orleans, it was Tuesday. It was fight week. Everybody just got in.
Yeah.
T-Bow weighed in. And that dude, he was fighting at 55 at the time. He weighed in, he was 178. And he looked at coaches and he goes, oh, lighter than I thought. And I'm like, what? What the fuck? I'm like, dude, if I would be losing my fucking mind right now. He's gangster. He did it. But regardless, that's where it gets dangerous. And when we talk about brain damage, most of it is coming from people killing themselves and then getting in a fist fight after. It's more common sense than anything. Right?
100%.
You're going to kill yourself and feel like the biggest piece of shit, like you can't do anything. You can't even stand and walk. So then 24 hours later, you are put yourself in one tense situation you could possibly put yourself. To me, the way I get it doesn't make any sense.
So that's what I wanted to also follow up with that, because there's been a lot of speculation about what age is the right age to hang shit up? Is there a right age to hang it up? Or fucking what, does it just depend on how the fighter is physically, how they feel?
Yep. So for me, my opinion, everybody's different. I mean, look at this title fight, 205 we got coming up, right? How old is
Glover Teixeira is 42.
42. And look at what he did to Smith. I was like, what the fuck is going on? You know, like I was watching, I'm like, oh man, this is gonna be, I think this might be it for going. Nope. He just puts on a clinic. So like, I think the fight age is different. How many wars have you been in, right? Yeah. So back to Ortega, why am I throwing in the towel?
Yeah,
I'm throwing in the towel because a lot of times fights like that change people. I called it. I called the Gaethje Ferguson. I said Ferguson will never be the same after this fight.
Oh.
Like, people don't understand. Fights like that take years off your life. Like, it's no joke. It's the fight business. So why do you think Floyd Mayweather is in his 40s and he can still fight? Because he's defensive. He doesn't take very much damage, So I think it all depends on what type of fighter you are, how much punishment you take. I think that's the biggest factor.
Sorry, Erik.
Yeah.
There was another fight like that, which was Thiago Santos versus Johnny Walker. And they both main evented fight night. And of course, Santos was coming off 3-fight losing streak. And he was coming off, when you have 2 ACLs broke, you're never the same. Yeah. And, people were shitting on his performance because of how defensive he fought. Yeah. And I'm like, bro, take that shit and shove it up your ass, because it is, better to fight smart than fight stupid and get knocked out.
Yeah. Yep. Well, what a lot of people don't understand either is like, and I get it. It's entertainment, right? UFC, they want entertainment. They want people to bang. But all these people have lives too, right? Yes. If he loses his 4th fight, he might be getting cut. Now his livelihood is done. So like, you're gonna have fights like that. I mean, Derek Lewis is one of the most fan favorite dudes, right? And one of my favorite heavyweights. And he knocks people out, and it's awesome how savage is. You remember that in the Ngannou fight? Yes. You remember Lewis and Ngannou? Like, hey, we both know we hit really fucking hard, and we don't want to leave on a fucking stretcher. So we're play on the outside a little bit. Sometimes it just happens. Sometimes that's, and like I said, some fighters, I even take Khabib. Now, Khabib to me is exciting because he mauls people. He takes them down, mauls them. To a lot of Fairweather fans, he's not that exciting. Oh. Well, it doesn't matter because he's not taking damage and he's undefeated. So like, I love striking. I love entertainment. Yes, that's my thing. But I totally get fighters that are going in there to win, because if you're undefeated, it doesn't matter how exciting your performance was. I remember Usman before his striking started getting better. He wasn't the most. You know what I'm saying? So like, but hey, he's undefeated in the UFC, and now he's making money to see him fight, whether you want to see him win, So, yeah, man, I mean, there's a bunch of different angles. Everybody's got a different perspective, but definitely on the injury thing. I mean, Dominic Cruz is a good example too. Has so many ACL tears and surgeries. It's hindered him getting a run going, and I've been there. I ran into the same thing. And as for your body, as for my body, I don't care about fighting if you've got knee tears, whatever, all that. I think a fighter's done when your brain's getting cooked and you're starting to, you're starting to see results of CTE and shit like that.
Hell yes.
That's what it's time. Yeah.
There is one very good example of that, Erik, and I don't know if you remember this, the fight, his name is Sean Spencer. And Sean Spencer basically fought 17 times in the UFC. And all he did in his fights was he swung for the fences, put on a show for the fans.
It was Spencer Fisher.
Yes, Spencer Fisher. That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. Sorry,
I'm sorry. Boy too. He's an Iowa boy too. Yep.
Yeah. So Spencer Fisher now retired, can't remember most of his short-term memory.
Yeah, man.
Because of that time.
And that's the thing, because I watched that story, and when he says he like waking up and not knowing who his kids are is his biggest. Could you imagine? Like, and that's why I tell people, even when people come into the gym and they say they want to fight, I'm like, I don't trust anyone until you put in time and you're training your ass off and you show me dedication. Because this isn't a hobby. Duke said this before I met Duke. So when I fought on the regional circuit, he actually commentated for this promotion that I was fighting for. And yeah, that's how crazy is that. So, and I remember my first pro fight, Prentice Wolf, my opponent was walking out. We were both obviously young kids, like 18. And he said in his bio, he likes it. He likes fighting, fun. And Duke straight up goes, well, son, fighting ain't a hobby. This is, this is a lifestyle. And it is, because there's serious implications, right? Like if you get a lot of brain damage, it affects your life forever, So, but us as fighters, we know this. We know this going in. We love it. We love the competition. But if you're going to do it, do about it. Do it the
100%. So that was, of course, one very unfortunate example, and that's what I'm saying. Like, that's what you said. Like, when your brain starts to get cooked and you start to feel it getting cooked, that's when I think, bro, it's time to back out. And I think, one of the guys who's doing it very smartly nowadays is James Krause. And James Krause is doing it smart because he's been in wars, fights, and the guy's still fighting, but he's, I think he's turning it now back to coaching Glory House Gym.
Well, and I've trained with James Krause, and I'm cool with James Krause. And it's totally right. I remember when I fought actually Clay Guida, I think I ran into him in the lobby and we talked for a little bit. And that's what he said. He's like, dude, if I can make money running a gym, he's like, dude, this shit it's hard on your head. And he's right, man. And a lot of people tell me, I haven't retired. I'm still going to fight. I've got other things going on in my life right now, running a gym with my brother and stuff like that. It's kind of the same thing James Krause is doing, right? But it's one of those things that the older I get, and I get people like, oh, you're still in your prime, you're good, man, young 30s, this is your prime. People don't realize I've been fighting since I was 16 years old. Whether it's amateur, it doesn't matter. You're still taking blows to the head. You're training. When I used to train in my brother's basement, we didn't know shit about long-term brain defense. We thought it was a good day of sparring if everybody left with a headache, So I've been doing this over half my life. So it's something you have to, I shouldn't say it shouldn't kill your dreams, but you got to be smart about it. You got to think about it. And this also goes technique wise, right? Like, this is why it's so important. I don't care if you're a ground guy, to understand how to stand in fighting, because a lot of guys now a lot of these wrestlers are coming in, your Michael Chandlers and people like that have really good wrestling that maybe you can't take them down, and they like to strike now. They like to bomb, so you see some vicious knockouts, and every knockout, man, that's a concussion. That's just adding mileage onto the brain, I
mean, oh man, I guess I don't know I'm speechless now, man. I had to wrap this up, but it's real life. People forget. You may be watching in a crowd as a fan, but unless you're a fighter in the cage, stepping in and taking those shots, I would say you never really understand what they go through and what you guys go through, man. So for that, I applaud you. You know, I've been, you know, man, I used to watch you in the WEC, and I'm like, bro, Erik Koch is so cool, man. Fucking Nancy Pets is so cool, but what the fuck? You know, you're actually taking real shots, you know, and
Yeah.
that shit muster. You know, when I saw Merab beat the shit out of Marlon Moraes, I was like, bro, how the hell are you taking this shit?
Yeah. Yeah. That fight, holy shit, man.
Yes, sir.
Wild.
When I see some of this shit today, you know, it's a fighter's life. You know, this is the fight game. You know, and this is why I have, you know, so much respect for guys like you. You know, guys who I grew up watching as a fan. You know.
Yeah. Well, that's like I said. That makes what I do that much better. You know, even just those WEC stuff like that. I know I've been following for a while. You know, and that's cool. That's cool that, you know, I remember being the young blood. And now I feel like I'm becoming the old man. You know, going back talking about my war stories.
Oh man, so nah, man, it's great. I love the war stories, man. I love the war stories, man. I want to thank you so much, Erik Koch, for coming on the show. It's been a hot minute since I've been on the mic, so to be on the mic with you, man, is second to none, my brother.
Oh yeah, I had a good time. Like I said, I'm sorry if I chewed up so much time, but I actually like talking. Right?
Oh, I love talking, man.
Yeah. But yeah, you know, I always take whatever opportunity I can, because even in my career, how it's gone so far, you know, a lot of ups, a lot of downs. But if I can teach the younger generation, and me coaching now too, you know, me running Hard Drive Performance Center, running our kickboxing program, our MMA program, you know, most our teams are young, our most our gals are young, super young, they're 18 to 21, you know, like we got a young squad. And passing my knowledge down like my coaches did to me, like Duke Rufus, like Keone, it's cool. It's cool. I get not a selfish satisfaction. I get the giving back to the sport.
That's
that saved, you know. So, hell yeah. Well, I appreciate it. I really do.
I appreciate you coming on, man, and passing knowledge down, you know, really giving some interesting takes and advice to the younger generation. And I'll make sure they listen to this one, man. Thank you so much, Erik Koch. And have a good day. Have a good day, brother.
Hey, thanks. You too.
Thank you, man.